What's up, Shining Otaku? It's Cloud9 and this is Shining Spotlight, the stream where we highlight creatives in the industry in order to inspire you guys. Today we have an amazing creative within the industry, really strong talent with knowledge under his belt. He's traveled across the globe and even spent some time in Japan at one point. He's the chief editor of Imaginos Workshop and also known for co-creating the comic The Extras, a coming-of-age story about 4 girls within a boarding school in a world with some supernatural elements to it. Today, we're pleased to welcome Jeff Lilly.
Welcome, Jeff.
Everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad to have you on. I mean, it's like having you on is basically like having, one of the brothers on. Basically, as far as, like we're all like Imaginos and Shining Otaku, we all have like a close relationship. So, it's like family, basically. And in any case, we know you've been putting out The Extras and we've been following it. You've been spreading that far and wide. But I really want to know, as far as like creatively, or I think a lot of people out there would probably be curious creatively, when working in comics, how did you come up with the concept for The Extras?
Oh boy, long story. Okay. First of all, I work with my 2 co-creators, Pam Bliss and Katie Hodges. They've just been amazing to work with. As far as where it came from, Pam Bliss came up with the setting and a lot of the background, and it must have been 20. It's been 20 years now for sure. I just started writing stories set in that universe, and we exchanged stories back and forth. And she wrote comics and I wrote fiction, and she wrote fiction and I wrote more comics, and we just sort of kind of built it up that way. And so at this point, it's really kind of hard to say who came up with what. But as far as the overall setting, the city, the other place, that was all Pam's creation.
Because she was more on the world building end, essentially.
I'm sorry.
She did more about the world building.
She did a lot of the world building. I did some world building as well. It was really a collaborative effort. Actually, a lot of the time I spent in Japan, we were in constant communication. We did a graphic novel together while I was in Japan and she was in the States. And
nice. I don't think I know. I heard anything about that, to be honest with you. But I mean,
yeah, it was a book called Green Peas and Chicken Horses, and it's set in the same setting as The Extras, 2 other characters. But I added a couple of characters that I was writing about, and then Pam added a couple of characters, and then I had known Katie Hodges for a couple of years by this point, and I had always wanted to work on a project with her. And we had a project we were going to do, but it kept getting shelved and pushed aside. And finally, I just said, well, how about this? And we ran it by her, and she became the 3rd member of our team and is a full co-creator as well. So there's a lot of great energy between the 3 of us. And when we first started out, it was I had a lot of reservations because it's like, okay, I'm in the Detroit area. Pam is in Northwest Indiana, and Katie is in Central Georgia. And, it's like, we're physically very far apart. We're just communicating online and stuff. I know that's no big deal these days, but, I'm a little older, and it's like, this newfangled stuff gets kind of difficult, So, but we really made it work, and we put out a page a week, one way or another, for over a year now, and with no breaks and no stoppages and no downtime. And what we've done so far has just been so incredible, and we hope to keep it going as long as we can.
So before we get like deep into The Extras, I guess I'm kind of curious, as far as when you were in Japan, is that kind of when you decided to like kind of pick it up and as far as doing graphic novels, or was this way before like spending any time in Japan that you decided to do this? Or let's see,
mean, I've loved comics my whole life. I mean, I can't remember when I started reading them. And I used to write and draw little comics when I was a kid, like 5, 6 years old. And I think, one of the first people I met, who I think a lot of creators, it's the first person they met who really inspired them to do their own work, was Matt Fasell. I met Matt in, I want to say I think it was 1989 at Motor City Comic Con back when it was in Dearborn, at that one Civic Center. And actually, I can't remember if it was that con or the next con that's when I first met Pam Bliss. And, here they were doing, Matt does, Cynical Man and Anti-Social Man and all these other great mini comics, and just, a single sheet of paper, 8 pages, copy it, fold and staple. And that really was like, it's like anybody with a photocopier, and these days anyone with a printer at home can make their own comics. And so I started writing and doing my own mini comics, and I did comics with various friends. And let's see, I'm trying to think. I just kept it going like all those years. And then when I went to Japan, I kept it up then. Of course, my first stint in Japan from 97 to 03, I felt kind of isolated because I was really far away, and actually it's like
it's different.
It was different because we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have things like that, we didn't have Dropbox and ways to really share files, and it was a lot harder to work on stuff. But the second time around, I did a lot more work while I was there. But strangely enough, I totally lost touch with what was happening in the Japanese comic scene while I was in Japan, because I was living in these tiny little towns in the middle of nowhere.
Really? So, I mean, they didn't have maybe it's going to be a little bit different, because if that was way back then, I don't know were 7-Elevens as popular, back in the late 90s, early 2000s in terms of in Japan? Or?
Yeah. I mean, they were, but of course, you go to the 7-Eleven and what they have, like the big weekly, the big chunky phone book.
Yeah, that's what I keep thinking about. Where I'm like, really, I would have thought there would have been plenty of at least manga, in the stores.
There was plenty of that kind of stuff, but it's like I never really got into the mainstream stuff. I always liked the indie stuff, and that was always a little bit harder to find. I took occasional trips to the big city, et cetera, but the biggest change though for me really was in the U.S. manga market, which was just incredible. I left in '97, and nobody knew what manga was. It was like this, anime fandom was this weird fringe thing. And I come back in 2003, and Barnes & Noble has a manga section. It's like
that sounds about when I got into manga. To be honest, with you. 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but so what's really different about I guess from your perspective, the manga industry versus the the comic industry, when you were over in Japan versus when you came back and you see, okay, these are kind of how these two places kind of interact.
I'm sorry, how the
how the fandom's different, I guess, if that makes any sense, in terms of how the Japanese indulge in comics, versus maybe how we do in the States. Did you notice any difference in terms of how things are put out over there, or how?
Well, being perfectly honest, really, I mean, again, when I was in Japan, when I was in the U.S., I was kind of deep into the fandom. When I was in Japan, not so much. I mean, the big difference, of course, I guess, was in the mainstream penetration of comics. I mean, in Japan, reading comics is, it's pretty much everybody does it. It's something that's more for all ages and all types of people. It was never a thing that was restricted to a particular fandom. So that was, I always found that kind of, refreshing and interesting. It's like, no one would look at you.
People are giving you the side eye, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as more the hardcore fandom, I guess that's the same there as it is here. You have people who are very, very single-minded. They're very into one particular thing, or they're obsessed with it, and they collect and they collect and they shut themselves off from the world. I mean, that happens everywhere. I mean, people are people everywhere you go.
Oh yeah,
And fandom really is fandom is fandom. But of course, the other big difference was in the like the distinction between big press and small press in Japan. I mean, for a while there, the only way you could get published in the U.S. was you had to go through a publisher, or you had to take on immense risk by printing 3,000 copies of your book and trying to get Diamond to carry it, or trying to find somebody to distribute it, or find a way to sell several thousand copies at a con. In Japan, it seemed like the fandom was deep enough that even small creators could do really, really well at conventions.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I don't know.
Go to like a Comic Cat or anything like that. Like one of the like the big conventions in Japan,
like the Winter Comics Market, things like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of my big regrets is I never got to go to one of those. I always kind of wanted to, but I was working over there, and it was always kind of busy. It never lined up with my work schedule, so I could never actually go there. But it's I mean that's the nice thing. It's like it seems to me like fandom was deeper, deeper there as far as you could small creators could really put out high quality books because printing was fairly cheap. But then again, I mean I don't know that for sure. I mean I'm sure there are plenty of small time creators in Japan who struggle to get their stuff out too, and but I never I don't recall ever seeing any like U.S. style mini comics, like one sheet of A4 paper cut and stapled, and Xerox copied. It didn't seem to be a thing. Maybe it is. I don't know. I never had opportunity to see like the really underground stuff, I guess.
Oh yeah, from over there. Well, I guess. See, I feel like the only tricky thing about that too. I mean, I'm wondering like with some stuff. I know you speak Japanese, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
You can understand a lot of that stuff. I'm like, if it's somebody like myself or whatever, like some of the underground stuff, you'd be thinking like, dang, like I barely can translate just like some stuff in Japanese. I mean, if it doesn't, we probably miss a lot of stuff over here because you think about, it has to be translated, to make it over here. So,
right. Well, that's the other interesting thing, and one more little aside here. When we first came back to the States, our first time back in around 2003, 2004, my wife and I did translation work for a certain publishing company that they were known for their videos, like their anime translations, but they got into doing manga too because everyone was doing manga because it was a gigantic market. And what we really found was that the cream of the crop had been skimmed off a long time ago, and we were into like the second and third and fourth tier properties. And some of the stuff we worked on, like a lot of it was really, it's like kind of marginal stuff. And I mean I don't, that may just be me, that may just be my personal thing, because maybe it just wasn't stuff that I was into.
I see.
But then again, it is entirely possible that everyone thought well, manga is so awesome. It's like, yeah, well, if you take the top few percent of any creative output, it's gonna look fantastic. But when you start going deeper and deeper, it's like nobody
like, what is this?
Yes, right.
Like, what is this mess down here?
Mm-hmm.
Or you think about like a lot of the stuff nowadays, not to like shame anything, but some of the stuff kind of feels the same. Nobody is really doing much of anything different. Well, it really depends. But I guess I'd say you see a lot of the same unless you really go looking for something different. But so did you ever you translated like any I these works or materials over into English? Like basically, were you doing that quite frequently? Basically while you were over in Japan, or was that something you did when you got back over here?
It was only something I did when I got back here. We were, we came back in 03. We started our translation and guest services business, and one of the things we got into was translating manga. We had five books for this particular company, 3 of which were actually published, 2 of which I have no idea what happened to, but the company folded their manga division.
Oh wow!
And that was that. So
I see. So
I don't want to say the name of the company. I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know if they're even still around. So
the Phantom. It's like a Phantom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I never had a bad time with them. They were fine to work with. It's just that, I don't have any of the facts about what happened to them.
So like when I think of like the extras, of course it centers on like school life. But when I also think of Japan, I kind of think of like, or at least when it comes down to, some aspects of the culture, it seems very like school based. You think a lot of animes, a lot of mangas, they always have that kid. And I know a lot of people know what I'm talking about out there with that, usually with a cliche of like a kid like sitting out the window, like looking out the window, staring out. So it's kind of like obvious that that's something like, really injected in a culture. But of course the extras is something very different. It's like a boarding school, and it feels like something more akin to like, kind of like Harry Potterish in the sense that you have, a collective of kids in a boarding school, right? Like can you explain a little bit to like the audience, I guess, as far as, the basics on what the extras is about?
Well, the interesting thing about the extras is you mentioned Harry Potter, and the thing is, J.K. Rowling, she grew up reading, these boarding school stories, which were like a staple of for kids her age and going back, into the Victorian era. And this was another thing that Pam turned me on to. She basically said, check out these Victorian era boarding school stories, and I read them. And I mean, and there's lots of stuff now. It's sort of like you kind of shake your head and go, what, but they were so charming. And the thing I liked about them so much was that it really, like, the stories weren't about giant significant things. Like, the world wasn't ending, and the meteor wasn't going to come and destroy the UK or whatever. It was just these kids, usually girls, sometimes boys, just having adventures in their everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was young, there's a Canadian author named Gordon Corman, and he wrote a series of books. It's the Bruno and Boots series, and I read those voraciously when I was young, and I realized that they're also boarding school stories, and it's the exact same thing. And if I ever get to meet Gordon Corman, I'd love to ask him. It's like, did you read the works of Angela Brazil? Angela Brazil is one of the big names on she was like the primary writer of the Victorian era things. And actually, I'm not sure about this, but it may have been like a shared name that many authors used.
Oh, I see. Like kind of just like something that they kind of went under when they wrote this type of story.
Yeah, I mean, there was some of the serial story, like Tom Swift and stuff. I know they were written by different authors under a single assumed name. But maybe I should probably know this, but I don't, unfortunately. I'm not sure if Angela Brazil was one person or many people. But anyway, Pam said, I want to do a story like this, that it doesn't involve the end of the world. It doesn't involve anything big and significant. It's just the everyday adventures of growing up. And of course, this also, dovetails nicely into manga and anime. School stories are so overrepresented there. And there's lots of reasons why for that too, which I'm sure, others can get into in a more scholarly fashion than I could. But this was the origin. It's based in, the classic boarding school story, and about the characters just being sort of regular people and doing regular things, and going out and enjoying life and enjoying their days, and getting into trouble and finding adventure along the way.
It's not like different places, right? Like I know.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. Like with you have like in some cases Shelby, right? For example, the character Shelby, she kind of looks like an imp kind of in a way, right? But then I noticed there's other people in the school kind of like that, And I was like, really, so you have like, it has a lot.
You're probably thinking of Chantilly.
Yeah. You're no. Shelby is the one, with the
Shelby is yeah. She's what we call a sinister. She's basically she's just a person. She just she looks a little different, but her people are like they're one of the populations of the city where this all takes place. There's what we would call, I guess you could call regular humans, baseline humans. There's sinisters. There are chimerae who have various animal characteristics. We've seen one of those in the last couple episodes, the Batgirl in the stairway. And let's see, and there's also another major character, a prefect, who's coming very soon, who's going to be hopefully a character everyone likes. But yeah, there's all kinds of people, and like Shelby is just like she's the kid from the wrong side of the tracks, basically. The spark plug, and she's a native to the city, so she's just immersed in it, like a fish in a pond. Chantilly is also from the city, but she's from a section called Nightside, where basically the sun never rises. So they have a slightly different culture over on that side of town. And then for the fish out of water character, you have Nita, who is from Indiana. And actually, she's from the town that Pam Bliss writes about in her mini comics called Kikionga.
It all kind of connects.
Yeah. So Nita's from. It's not exactly our world, but it's close enough. It's basically she's from the USA. She's an American girl from the Midwest, and she's tossed into this bizarre place with all these different people. And then the last character to be introduced is Patience, and I don't want to give away much about her yet, but she may be the strangest one of all.
Okay.
So
that's interesting. I think, to be honest, like it's funny. This is probably gonna sound bad. Maybe this means I need to expand, as far as more of my knowledge in terms of like reading, some stories that happen to be more, along the lines of like when we're talking like some of the Victorian stories, right? Like, I was like the only story. This isn't even technically Victorian, but like boarding school story that I actually kind of invested myself in a little bit. This is when I was like a little kid, and I think Nico, you know what I'm about to say. Is Madeline. I know that probably sounds like weird. It's like way off in left field, but
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, that's another. There you go. That's a classic boarding school story. Told in the form of an illustrated picture book, or these days I guess you might almost call it a light novel.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, that's a perfect example. Another one that's been not so much a direct inspiration, but the kind of thing we're going for is Yotsuba.
Yotsuba? I'm not familiar.
The little green-haired girl.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and basically, I think the tagline. I believe the tagline of that comic is "Enjoy everything."
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of, that's a good model to live by. Every little thing that happens.
So, as far as like, at least in terms of like some of the more Victorian stories, I know you kind of mentioned, that being a lot of like, for example, like Pam's influence, right?
Yeah.
Who are like your writing influences, and I don't know, maybe you won't be able to attest to this as much, but are you familiar with any of like Katie's influences, since she's also the artist for it as well? Like, I'm just kind of curious as far as like how this all comes together.
Let's see. My writing influences. Let's see. I mean, I'm trying to think here. There are so many. As far as fiction,
mm-hmm.
I've always loved Isaac Asimov because the guy had like an IQ of 2 million, but he wrote using words and concepts that anybody can understand, and that's a lot harder than it seems. Being able to write complex ideas very cleanly and neatly. I always loved Ray Bradbury and his very descriptive prose. Um, Ursula Le Guin and let's see, Octavia Butler and gosh, so many, Madeleine L'Engle. There's so many writers that I've read who've influenced me. And as far as comics, let's see, like I think here, I guess I've always liked I like Alan Moore. Not he's he's sort of like, as much as he kind of goes off the deep end sometimes, he's just a fantastically talented wrier.
I'm with you on that. I agree.
William Messner Loebs, to give a shout out to a local writer. He's mostly well known for his art, but like the stuff that he writes is fantastic too. Let me think here. I just, boy, let's see. And of course, I've mentioned Matt Fasell. I love the way Pam Bliss has actually been a huge influence on me, because like I think actually maybe she's taught me more about writing than anyone else.
Really? Okay.
I mean, just as far as like how, like what a comic story actually, like the important parts of a comic story. This is what's necessary, and then take your text and cut and trim all the fat out of it. And she's taught me more about like how to properly edit a page than anyone else, I think.
Okay.
Let's see. What was the other? Oh, as far as Katie and her influences.
Just if you know offhand. Yeah, I know she's not here to say. Well, I was just kind of curious.
She'll probably kill me. I mean, I know. Let's see. I haven't honestly had that deep discussion with her yet about influences, because we mostly talk about the work and the process and things like that. And she's also done so many amazing things design wise. When I write a page, I have a basic idea in my head about how it's supposed to look, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just give Katie the script. I don't give her much of anything else. I may say, well, I'm thinking this or this, but then she'll render it. She'll break it down and render it in such a, and it's like, wow, this looks 10 times better than I thought it would. and of course, that's what a good artist does.
If they know how to break it down in their head, panel by panel,
Yeah, and to make it look fantastic, and to translate, those really difficult. It's like, oh, I see, she's looking out a window, and you can see this vague reflection of the city, but it's not too detailed, and it's like there's this sort of like wistful look in her eyes, and she'll just like boom, nail it, like that. It's like, holy cow! But of course, I shouldn't be surprised at her talent, but she still surprises me with her talent.
No, I mean, honestly, like that's always great when you have a good rapport with a team, because I mean, there's plenty of cases where that doesn't happen with people, and
right.
It can kind of muddy the work a little bit if people aren't able to communicate effectively, as far as.
And especially because she has a day job, and I have a day job, and and Pam is always busy with her stuff, and it's like, I'm grateful to all of them for their hard work, and I'm just amazed that we've been able to put out a page a week and never have a break. It's been fantastic.
So, okay. Looks like we have a few comments that came through.
Okay.
Yep, rolling them up. First one's from Rival Steve. Says, I'm currently working on a story set in the Victorian era. Do you have any good books or any books you would recommend for getting a good feel for the setting?
If you're looking specifically for like a school setting, again, go on Project Gutenberg. I think it's just projectgutenberg.com, right? And look up Angela Brazil. spelled just like it sounds.
Brazil.
Brazil. And you'll find there are lots and lots and lots of books, and that's more for the day. That's more for the day-to-day kinds of things. Other, let's see. I'm trying to think. Of course, another very very easy to find series of books with lots of detail for the Victorian era are the Sherlock Holmes stories, and not so much the movies, because those are always like, for some reason they set those in the 40s, but read the originals by Arthur Conan Doyle, and I mean there's a wealth of detail there. There's also I read a long time ago, what was it called? It was something like, what the second part of it was, what Charles Dickens knew. Hang on a second. I'm gonna hop online and find this thing. Darn it.
Okay. Well, while you're looking at that real quick. Yeah, while you're looking at it.
There it is. Okay, the book is called What Jane Austen Ate and Charles Dickens Knew. What Jane Austen Ate and Charles Dickens Knew, and that was a very interesting book about just life in the 19th century. Let's see. Oh, and also let's see. I'm trying to think. There was another book called, I think it was just called Life in Victorian America, and I can't recall an author, but there's plenty of stuff like that. The internet's a great resource. Start searching for books along those lines, and I'm sure you'll find a wealth of details. In a whole treasure trove of books, and let's see, sources. So.
Okay, I noted that down myself. So
I see you with the pen, and like you know what's going.
So Rival Steve, he came in with another comment here. Swamp Thing is really good if you're into Alan Moore.
Yes, I read the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, and of course, I liked. I read V for Vendetta years and years ago. And of course, the original Watchmen graphic novel, and just all kinds of other stuff. And he just had, I mean, again, a lot of this stuff will, it'll send shivers up your spine. And some of the stuff will just it'll make you mad. But I mean, he's such a good writer. He can really evoke so many different kinds of emotions in the reader. So, okay. Yeah, I definitely, the Alan Moore run in Swamp Thing was great.
Yeah, I do need to read that. That I haven't done. It's read Swamp Thing. The other ones I have done.
Got another one in with Timothy Phillips.
Hey, Tim. Shout out to Tim. How you doing, Tim?
Jeff, what about Dave Sim? Wasn't he a major influence?
I avoided mentioning Dave Sim because, I mean, let's put it this way. Dave Sim may have been like the ultimate independent comic creator because, of course, for all you who don't know, he did a book called Cerebus the Aardvark, and he self-published 300 issues of this. And it stands as one of the, probably the most amazing achievement by any independent comic artist, like to self-publish 300 issues and to gain a large following like he did. But unfortunately, about halfway through the run, Dave kind of went off the deep end, and he went into some really heavy misogyny kind of stuff that I just couldn't take, and that's when I stopped reading his stuff. But so that was kind of sad, and as far as I know, he hasn't changed his stripes since then. But,
oh wow!
Yeah, I don't even know what his deal was, but anyway, that's the story. But hey, again, I can't take anything away from his achievement, and he published those 300 issues, and he did it, and it was amazing.
Wow.
Just feel like we just heard like a I don't know, like you hear like a legend and like a myth, like in a story, like where you hear like about like some great leader. Then like like it's kind of like the quote where it's you live the you live a hero. You die until you die to be a villain. I forget how it goes. You guys know what I'm talking about in the Dark Knight. Where it's like he was good and then he went on too long. And that was it.
Well, it was like I was collecting every issue. I was reading every issue, and then like the stuff started. I was like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, then he went on. I was like, oh, Dave, what are you, Dave? Oh, come on, man, no. And it was just like, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. Okay, well, catch you around. Sorry, man.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Robert Steve said, "Thank you for this for your input there."
No problem.
And Timothy, of course, laughed. And going back here, Mike Majestic came in.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Hey, Mike.
Came in saying, "It's great seeing you get some interview time, Jeff. Other than your Zapruder cam, I just great so far."
I'm using my laptop as an actual laptop. It's actually sitting on my physical lap, so as I move around, it jiggles. I'm sorry about that. Actually, let me see if I can. Stabilize this a little bit more here.
Yeah, Timothy followed up with that saying, "He's Jeff and needs a tripod." They're making fun of you.
I do need a tripod, okay. There we go. Once it stops shaking, okay, there we go. That might be better.
Oh, and it looks like we have the correct quote down here now. You die a hero, live long enough to see yourself become a villain. All right, I appreciate that.
Okay. Yep.
And that was the story of Dave's son.
Yeah, I mean, like back in high school and like early college years, I did a comic book review show on public access TV with my buddy Wade Simpson, called Hero Review, and I interviewed Dave Sim for an hour. He came to our studio and I did a whole hour-long interview, and I hung out with him all day. And I mean, it was a great day, and I still think back on that. And it was a great experience, and it was so strange to me, where he went with some of the stuff that he did. But anyway, enough about that.
Timothy came in again, saying most of my major influences are all douchebags when you meet them. And Mike Majestic came in again here saying, speaking of comics, Jeff, considering Shining Otaku has a focus on manga, it would be remiss of you to forget to note your involvement with Studio Revolution, Kenichi Sonoda.
Yeah. Okay. Oh boy, those were some wild times.
I feel like we're gonna hear an interesting story.
This was okay. Back in the early '90s, Studio Revolution was based in Minneapolis, and it was headed by Dan Kanemitsu, who is currently like the head. Well, he's like the top anime translator in Japan. He did like all the Evangelion stuff, So he was a mangaka himself, and he had a lot of friends, like a lot of the top professionals. And this was this was the early '90s. This is before manga really came to the U.S. or even there were anime conventions, but it was still very much a fringe thing. And Dan brought his friend Kenichi Sonoda, who, of course, is the creator of Riding Bean, and he did character designs for Bubblegum Crisis, Gal Force, a whole bunch of other things. And this was notable. We rented a van and drove to San Jose, and once we got there, we finished assembling this. I want to say it was a 140-page long self-published doujinshi featuring Mr. Sonoda's work and a bunch of other people's stuff as well. And we were up for 72 hours straight, putting this thing together with no sleep. This was back when I was young enough to still do this without dying. And I just the thing I mean, those were great times. I mean, who doesn't love spending, being at Kinko's at 3 a.m. doing photocopies, right? At the last minute for the convention that starts in 3 hours. But
oh wow!
but the thing I remember, the scene I remember the most was, of course, Sonoda had flown in from Japan, so he gets off the plane and he's probably jet lagged as hell, and he helps us to assemble the book, and we're at this Kinko's in San Jose, and it was about 3 a.m, I think, if I remember right, and I was starting to hallucinate from lack of sleep, and we did a final run through it. It's like we're 1 page short, like we had miscounted a page turn or something. There was a blank page. It's like, oh, what do we do? Oh God, what are we gonna do? So Sonoda says, don't worry, and he pulls a Sharpie out of his immaculate, suit jacket, and he draws. I can't remember what he drew. I want to say it was like the bunny girl from Daikon or something. I can't remember. He draws this character in 30 seconds flat with a Sharpie, just like one of those sketches that's like all muscle memory.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
And he was, and of course he was like, he seemed fresh as a daisy doing it, and he just and we put it in the book, we printed it, we got him back, went back to the hotel. There were like 14 people in a shared hotel room, as wow. We did back in the day. And the only
you guys didn't get put out or anything. Nobody was like, "What's going on in there?" No, most of you guys were just quiet. Like
we weren't partying very hard. But the thing I remember was the only space I could find was there was a space behind the couch, like behind the couch and between the couch and the wall, and I kind of fell into that crevice and fell asleep. And I woke up, when I next gained consciousness, everyone was looking for me. No one knew where I was. And they were saying, "Has anyone seen Jeff?" I was like stuck behind the couch in this crevice, sleeping it off. But the show was a great success, and we did a lot of work with Studio Revolution, like promoting animation back in the early days, and promoting manga artists who were very, very famous in Japan, but still fairly unknown outside of fan circles in the U.S. And those were great times. And Dan he lives in Tokyo now. I believe he's still in his father's old house. And he's a great guy. And it'd be great if you guys could have him on sometime, because talk about a well of stories, man. That guy has a million stories about the industry.
I'm always game to hear a good story. I'm sure everybody is.
Yeah. So, and of course, he knows people too. So he got a lot of the inside scoops that I don't. So.
Really noted. So Mike Majestic said, we were saying hello back to you earlier. And he said, no sweat on the Zapruder cam. We can still see you.
Yep.
Timothy came in saying, hero review.
Woohoo. Yep.
Channel 52 public access. Nice.
Yep. Channel 52 public access in Rochester. Yeah, those were the days. So.
And finally.
Yes.
Mike Majestic came in with Dan is affiliated with Studio Kara, the Ava Rebuild Films, but I believe he's an independent contractor as to translation. Of course, only Dan knows, as he's Dan.
Yes, that describes Dan very well. And yeah, I believe he is. I also believe he's an independent contractor. But again, he moves in all kinds of elite circles. So
nice.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about that now. Like Dan sounds like a mysterious figure. Where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely curious about him too now.
Yes. You can find it. I know he's on Facebook. I don't know. He's just the thing about Dan is just he's very, 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 very busy all the time. He has an insane workload, but
So, considering all the experience that you have with, of course, like being being involved with what you did in regards to Japan, and as far as what you've been doing in comics, I'm surprised you haven't translated the extras into Japanese yet. Are there plans for that?
Yes, there are, and actually, this is this is my most awful admission. You know, I'm pushing 50 these days, and the thing is, I'm on one side of the technological curve, and you know, I should really know more about how Photoshop works, but I don't. And the thing is, Katie has given me, you know, raw Photoshop files of all the pages, and I just got to go in. I got to figure out how to change the word balloons, basically, or change the text in the word balloons. That's all I got to do. But just with everything else going on, I just have not gotten around to it. So, but I will. And yes, there are plans to translate that.
Translate. Okay. You know, I'm just like thinking like it would be a waste to me not to, you know, and that if you, especially since you know it fluently, you know. So like, are you going to be putting out like the graphic novel, like, you know, anytime soon? I mean, obviously you guys have to build up enough pages, but
yes,
you know.
we were actually we would have had it out by now if COVID hadn't, you know, wrecked the con season, but that's okay because it just means we're going to have more pages once the book comes together.
Actually, I meant to ask you about that. Like, how has COVID been affecting you guys as a team? I mean, I know it's something that probably everybody asks all the time, you know, if they're asking you, you know, if you're working, when you're working on your work, but you know, I'm still curious, like, as far as like, we have to know, like, is there, like, because everybody's spread out because you have the internet, like, does it even really affect it at all aside from the cons?
Well, let's see. We have people who are shut in their houses, who have nothing better to do but to write and draw. So, I mean, really, honestly, as far as the workflow, I mean, you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, it's it's mostly the anxiety. It's like, you know, the anxiety impinges on your ability to concentrate, your ability to write, you know, your ability to draw these things. So I mean, a lot of it, you know, there's been a lot of days where, you know, the the creativity gets dumped out of your brain, and the, you know, fight or flight takes its place, and you have anxiety all day, and it's very hard to do anything creative. But on the other hand, if you're stuck in the house, it's you know, you don't have as many excuses to not do your creative work. So I think overall it's probably been a wash. I mean, you know, there's some disadvantages, but also, you know, some advantages. I mean, having more time, you know, and since my day job, you know, our day job of our you know, guest services business, since there are no international business travelers anymore, you know, I have more time for creative work because I'm certainly not working my day job anymore.
I see. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know. Hopefully, all this stuff. I'm hoping it ends fairly soon, but we're probably gonna be dealing with this to the end of the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, really, realistically, I mean, just for my own mindset, I say another year. I mean, I think hopefully by next summer we'll be over the hump. But you know, a lot of stuff has to happen. A lot of stuff has to go right.
You're right about that. You know, I think there's another comment.
Bring it up. Timothy Phillips says, "What about Ninja High School, Jeff?"
What about Ninja High School, Tim? I also in the early '90s, I spent a week with at Antarctic Press, Ben Dunn's house, which was Antarctic Press in those days. And actually, to be honest, I don't know if Antarctic Press is still running out of Ben Dunn's house or not. But I went down there, and I saw the operation, and you know, that was a lot of fun. And you know, Ninja High School is you know, again, another long running, you know, fun independent comic with the school theme. But of course, it was much more a parody of manga, you know, straight up. So, yeah.
Timothy says, Jeff Shagback, no, just shamelessly plugging.
Shagbark Knoll, yeah. Hey Tim, why don't you just write in the URL of of your work, and so
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
now he did ask this a little earlier. Ben Dunn in that crew.
Ben Dunn in that crew. Yep. Ben Dunn at the time. Let's see, Doug DeLynn, and let's see, Robert DeJesus was down there with that group.
Okay.
So.
And then Mike Majestic says, yes, Dan kind of knows everybody in the anime industry.
Right.
Good to know.
Okay, so before we start to wrap up here, there are some big things I kind of want to know as far as your role as the editor in Imaginos, because as we know, you also edit in Imaginos. Like,
yes,
what is that like? Having several creatives that you work with and having to go over their work. Like, what is your process as an editor? For those out there, because I think that's something that some people probably don't really know what an editor might have to go through.
Oh boy, this is really kind of hard to explain. Being a story editor, it's like so much of it. I mean, first of all, there's the nuts and bolts. There's spelling and grammar, and comma goes here and period goes there, and quotation marks definitely don't ever go here. And please don't use an apostrophe s to in the wrong way, things like that. So there's the nuts and bolts of the grammar, but there's also so much of it is just feel. It's like you just get to know, like you look for the way information is presented on the page, and you think about the fact that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you try to avoid some of the stuff you used to see in comics, like the caption that says, "Suddenly he fell off the log," and then it has a picture of the guy falling off the log. It's like, you don't need that caption.
Yeah.
He fell off the log because amazingly enough, you can show it. And so really, oops. Oh, hang on 1 second.
Okay.
My computer was plugged in. Okay, there we go. But let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, so really, I mean, the rule for me, and this is not a hard and fast rule, but really for most scripts, it's like usually you can eliminate at least half the dialogue from the script. It's really that simple. You cut and you simplify, and you think about what's going to be shown on the page, what's going to be shown in the panel. And if you have the panel descriptions too, obviously it's very good. You kind of get a picture in your head, and you can just say, you don't need this, don't need this, don't need this. And also there are other things too, as far as structurally, that are very important. Like one thing that a lot of writers try, they don't start the story in the right place. Like, they'll start a story, it's like they think cinematically. It's like, we're going to have this slow dissolve, and here's the planet, and then the next page we get close to the planet, and we get even closer to the planet, and then we're in the planet's atmosphere, and then we're zooming down to the scene of the first scene. It's like, no, just put me in the middle of the action. Just put me in the middle of that first scene, and then work backwards from there. It's like, hook me, get me interested, and then fill in your backstory later. I mean, cinematically, yes. As a storyboard, yes, this works. This is great. Oh, this is a great crane shot and stuff. But you don't do that in comics. And I think it's a pretty interesting problem, because I obviously comic book lovers watch a lot of movies and they watch a lot of TV, but what they see doesn't always translate. And I think that may be one of the problems I'm seeing. But just things like that. But so much of it is really just about feel, and it's just about instinct. And of course, sometimes I'm wrong, and sometimes they'll get back to me and say, "This is what I was trying to do." And I'll say, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense," but maybe try doing it this other way. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to writers is, if you're debuting a new series that's totally original and it's all your original characters, no one cares. That's it. Nobody
It's very brutal to put it that way. But.
You know who this character is. You know their complex backstory. You know their family tree. You know how awesome that reveal is going to be when you find out just who, the long lost sister is. This is going to be friggin' awesome, but nobody knows that. Nobody knows who this character is. So you have to show me why I should care. And part of that, part of the way you do that is you throw people into the action. You do lots of character-related stuff, and you backfill as you have to. Don't give me 2 pages of text about the history of the world and the Great Fantasy War that devastated the universe. Nobody cares. We've seen it 100,000 times. Give us something that we've never. Give us something that's unique. Give us your unique take on a unique character, doing what the character does, and then everything will flow from there.
Yeah, that's perfect. That makes perfect sense.
Definitely. And even Mark C. Dudley commenting on that, saying absolutely the nuts and bolts.
Oh, so with the extras,
yes.
I guess I would say, where can someone find the extras if they're wanted? Like right now, if someone's like, I'm ready to get started. I haven't read it before. I want to check it out. Where can they find that?
It's being hosted right now on Comic Fury, comicfury.com. The direct link to the comic itself is http theextras.thecomicseries.com. So theextras.thecomicseries.com. All lowercase, all one string, no spaces, no underscores.
You also have a Facebook page as well, So
yes, yeah. Search for the extras. Let's see. Actually, I should probably know what. I go there all the time, but I should probably know what the actual URL for that is, shouldn't I?
I think as long as you type in the extras on Facebook, I believe it. You should be able to find it, but we'll also link it down there as well. Now.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, there's the thing is there's a couple of bands apparently called the Extras, and
I didn't even.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Let's see. My internet is being super slow.
The Extras. It's a band just like rocking out.
Yeah.
Be like, oh wow, this is an interesting band of 4 girls.
It's almost that's another trope that's well used. Boy, this is going slow.
But while you're looking for that, I do want you to ponder this question. This is going to be like our final question.
Okay.
What is your end game?
What's the end game? I would like to, if possible, I would like to follow the adventures of these students, through several years of their academic lives. Watch them as they grow and change, as they have various conflicts and problems and solve them, and have adventures and have fun along the way. And basically just have a great old time in this big, beautiful, weird setting that we've all created. And I can see the final page, I can see the final panel in my head, but I probably shouldn't say what that is. But it's but I do have the ending, and that's another thing for aspiring writers. Write your ending, and then work towards it. But write your ending first.
Like that way you know where you're going. It's kind of like you're not just wandering, and aimlessly, and then you end up having a series that's gone on way too long, and people are wondering why you're still doing it.
Right. Well, yeah. That's always a danger. But at the speed we're going, I'm hoping that it'd be wonderful if if it can become successful at this, and get some recognition, some income from this, it would be fantastic if we could put it out more often than we do. If we could make it more of our like a real job kind of thing, it'd be fantastic, because there's a lot of story to tell, and actually there's a lot of surprises coming up too. A lot of things that like no one could possibly suspect, and we're dying to show everybody, and we hope that everyone will follow us and stick around. Okay, so on Facebook, it's just facebook.com/the extras comic.
Yeah, and it should be linked there as well. Let's see here. Yeah, the extras comic all together.
Yep.
That's right after facebook.com. Now.
Yep. If I send you guys, like, I don't know if you want links to Pam and Katie's stuff as well. I could send links. I don't know if you could put those up somewhere or how this works.
Oh yeah, we can definitely link those down below too. If you send them over, we'll make sure to link those down below so everybody, can be seen. Now, before we go on ahead, of course, and close on out everything, before you leave, I do have a few quick announcements today. I do want to say that we do have 3 more episodes left within this season of Shining Spotlight. So if you have a particular guest you really want to see on the show, this is the time to let us know who you want to see on the show, and we'll see about having them on. So there are 3 more episodes before we close out this season. Of course, we do episodes every other week, so every other Sunday, at 9 p.m. So make sure you're there for the next episode. Also, if you're new to Shining Otaku, it's your first time checking us out, go ahead and make sure you hit the subscribe button on our channel so that you can keep up with any updates. We do like manga writing videos. We do videos on, of course, like talking about different manga discussions, and we're a manga publisher. So you want to make sure you check out, a lot of the projects we have coming up. And also, more importantly, I want to thank Jeff for coming on today, and talking about the extras, talking about his journey creatively. Make sure you like the extras page on Facebook. They upload every Friday, at 3 p.m. Yep. Am I correct? At 3 p.m. So make sure you do that. And thank you all for joining us today. Do you have anything to say, either one of you guys?
I'm going ahead and putting up the link here for Pam and Katie's work. And again, I do appreciate you coming out with us today.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate you coming out today as well.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully, pretty soon we are putting together the first book, the first collection, and hopefully it'll get out. We're hoping in roughly a month. So it should be.
I'm looking forward to that. I really am. So definitely, as soon as that's out there, we'll share it with you guys so you guys can also check it and make sure you pick up a copy as well. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm like, this is just something that's been pondering in my mind that I've wanted to say. There is a video that we have. We plan on starting a new video series, guys, where we'll be talking about different mangaka in the industry. Like kind of giving a little bit of a history background. Our first video that we'll have coming out will be a video about Osamu Tezuka. Funny enough, I actually have some footage from when I actually went to the museum. This is technically a little bit older, but it's going to be all informative stuff. So if you guys have a mangaka you want us to cover, you can also send us something on that as well, and we'll make sure to cover it. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching today. Again, thank you, Jeff, for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it, for giving us the time today. And make sure you guys share this video, like it, and spread it far and wide. Anyway, Shining Otaku out.
Catch you all later.
Bye.